Publishing Persuasion. I am Angela Montoya, author of Sinner's Isle, coming out next year by Joy Revolution Books. And I am here with the queen of merch, the amazing artistic delight, basically she made a shirt with our faces on it, guys, and it is amazing. It is stunning. It is comfortable. It is glorious. So I am here with Melanie Schubert. Melanie, how are you today?
You're making it sound like I actually hand stitched this shirt rather than just paid a company to emblazon our faces on our bodies.
I don't know what to look at. Do I look at your face or the face on your chest?
Or you could look at your face.
Yeah. Stare into my own eyes.
Oh, I am great. I have just gotten off our interview with Brent Taylor, and I'm just still sitting here just feeling the absolute fire of those words. And it makes me so happy and so proud to do this podcast. Seriously, we deserve t-shirts today.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We 100% deserve to have our faces printed across our chest. Yeah, everything, honestly, guys, everything Brent has to say in this interview to come, like, listen to it, take it in. He had Melanie and I both in tears, like, throughout the whole interview. Just his spirit, his soul, his heart in publishing and beyond. I mean, I think it'll just speak for itself when you hear this interview. So we are lucky. I'll read his bio. I took it from his website, which you need to go on and check out all of the books and authors he represents. It says, I am a senior literary agent and subsidiary rights manager at Triada US. Triada US was founded in 2004 by Dr. Uwe Stender. Since then, the agency has built a list of high-quality fiction and nonfiction for readers of all ages. After years of interning in trade book publishing, I joined Triada US in 2014 to assist Uwe Stender while building my own list of fiction and nonfiction for readers aged 0 to 18. I'm promoted to associate agent. I was promoted, in November 2015, to agent in April 2017, and to senior agent in October 2020. In 2019, I was named the PW Star Watch honoree. I am incredibly proud of my list. My clients' books have won major awards, collected star reviews, and hit the bestseller lists. In addition to my role as an agent, I manage the agency's subsidiary rights, licensing audiobook and foreign rights to our titles around the world and attending international rights fairs. I describe my reading tastes as upmarket. I'm passionate about books for young readers that are extremely well-written, robust with emotion, and appeal to a wide commercial audience.
Love it. And you know what? I was just thinking when you were saying before, like, this is literally, again, why I love this industry. These beautiful, passionate people, like, just wearing their hearts where everyone can see them. And it's a scary way to live, you know, but it's what part of why I love this community. And it's no surprise his bio is absolute fire, because so is he. But yes, we can't wait for you to hear this episode.
He's great.
I knew he was great, but like actually listening to him, you're right. It felt like right at church, and could just listen to him all day, seriously. And I am just like raw, authentic person, just sharing their truth. Like, I think that resonates with both of us. And seriously, like, I teared up. I could just like feel us tearing up at the same time by the end. I was like, yeah, she's probably getting emotional as well right now, because yeah, it's just so heartwarming to hear, and makes me so proud to be part of this industry, you know, pushing for people to think beyond what they maybe grew up with. And I think like that's an important point, because I was thinking about it as he was talking. Like, I grew up so conservative, you know, and like there's a lot that I had to like learn myself, like open my heart to like truth and love. And not that it's like always bad to be brought up religious, but there's certainly in, you know, certain ways of thinking that could stand to be challenged.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, in my high school days, like I was totally like into the church, which is obviously not a bad thing. But, you know, some of the ideals that I think we are taught, and maybe not even necessarily like by the church, but just by the people in the church, you know, it's not, doesn't come with a place of love necessarily, or understanding of how other people's lives are and what they feel and go through. And so having books that represent other lifestyles, other sexualities, other people of color, you know, like backgrounds, having those makes you and reading those stories makes you so much more compassionate in life, I feel. And so it's like, the more I read books by people of color, or queer authors, or, you know, just anything, and you take it in and you can kind of see yourself in these characters, or, you know, how different you are. And it really just, what Brent was saying, like, really was just so beautiful. And I just love that he is like birthing these authors and these books, you know. I tried to sound good, but it came out as a birthing freaking analogy.
You always told it too until I saw you start to laugh, and then I was gone.
I didn't know how else to say it, you know.
I think like it's just love. Hey, love is love, but like from every angle, not just from like an actual romantic point of view. Just like I approach things now with the like, how does this feel in my heart? Is it coming from a place of kindness and love and goodwill, or is it coming from a place of fear, tradition, and, you know, that kind of thing? Yeah. So, I mean, we should probably...
We're so excited for you guys to listen to this episode. Let's get into it right now.
Yes. Hi. Yes.
Hello.
Hi, welcome to the Publishing Persuasion.
Thank you. I'm excited to speak with you all.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you on. It's still dark here in Melbourne, but I'm up with the birds and I love it because it's my zestiest time. So great to have you on. I'm Melanie, and my beautiful, amazing co-host, Angela.
Yes. Thank you.
So
honestly,
nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's great to meet you, and finally in Zoom. And we are just so honored to have you on here. And our momager, Jessica Parra, has only the best things to say about you. So we were so excited and thrilled that you were okay to do this. So thanks for being on.
Yes, I'm excited.
And our listeners are just loving hearing from agents, because I think it's something of a mystery still, the agenting world to the writing world. So, I mean, let's just get right into the questions. What drew you to agenting? Where did it all start?
Yes. So when I was a kid, I was behind grade level in reading. And I thought that reading was only something you did for school. And when I went to middle school, I really had a hard time making friends. And I did know that there was a group of kids in my class that I wanted to be friends with them, and they were all readers. And specifically, they were all reading Twilight. And so the way that I was going to make friends in middle school was that I was going to read Twilight, and that would be my entrance into this friend group. And when I read Twilight in the 6th grade, I was so blown away by the fact that it felt like that book was like watching a movie in your head. And that was the moment that I realized, okay, reading is not just something you have to do for school. It's something that is incredibly entertaining. And as I started to read more and more novels, I was totally eating up the commercial novels that were very entertaining, all of the vampire series, but I was starting to find more literary books as well, and books that had gay characters. And that was around the time that I was figuring out that I was gay. And I grew up in Kentucky, so up until that point, the only time that I had heard about being gay, were negative remarks. I knew that it was something that was not good to be. And so when I started to find these novels where gay characters were just accepted and they were who they were, and it was great, that was so life-changing for me. And that was the moment when I realized, okay, books are not just entertaining, but they help you find your place in the world, and they help you become your most authentic self. And so from that moment, books just became incredibly special to me. And when I was in high school, I started to pay attention to authors on social media, and they would talk about their agent or their editor and publicist. And I was so fascinated that there was this entire industry that went into the creation of a book. It's not just an author, that writes the book and then it's magically published. So I started to look into the different roles in publishing. And I think the agent's role was most appealing to me because it felt very entrepreneurial out of all of the jobs. And even in high school, I felt like I had a strong entrepreneurial spirit. And I loved that the agent's job was this perfect balance of very creative tasks and also very business-minded tasks as well. So as an agent, you are editing a manuscript with an author and helping them develop it from a very early stage, but you also have to be very business savvy. You have to negotiate the contract. You have to, sell the translation rights all across the world and different things like that. So the agent's job is very unique in the sense that you get to be creative and you have to do a lot of the business elements that go into the book publishing process. And I was an intern for different agents throughout my high school years. So I would wake up at 5 a.m. and I would read queries for agents and respond to them. And then I would get on the school bus. And then on the bus ride home from school, I was doing my homework as quickly as I could so that when I got home, I could start reading manuscripts. And I would do about one reader's report on a manuscript each week. And I did that for 3 out of the 4 years that I was in high school. So when I graduated high school, I didn't go to college. I took a gap year. And when I was 18, I started interning for the boss that I have now, Uwe Stender, who is the president of our agency. I read manuscripts for him, and that internship went so well, and we just connected with one another so much that he hired me and started letting me build my own list of projects. And so I've been with the agency for 8 years.
Wow. That is incredible. I loved everything you had to say. I honestly kind of got a little teary-eyed when you were talking about, finding gay books and like finding yourself in these books, because there is something so special about being able to find yourself represented when you normally can't. And so that really spoke to me. And I almost really just cussed a lot right now because the fact that you were in high school and doing this boggles my ever-loving mind. Like, I bow down to you. You are a badass. That is so cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So cool. And I love that what brought you to books was Twilight. It gets a lot of flack, but it still has, and my girl Angela was sitting over there because she is a vampire queen, lover of Twilight, crush on Carlisle. And it is still good storytelling in and of its own right. It's why it did so well. It's why people still watch it. So I love that. And I also teared up because it just shows, like Angela said, how crucial representation is, and how whatever those books were you found then, like, you know, if anyone's wondering if your story needs to be heard, it does. There's somebody that will find that book, and it might not be everybody, but for somebody, that book's going to change everything for them. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I went on your website, and you represent some amazing authors. I mean, you've got books under your belt, and I was like scrolling through just some of the, you know, little pictures of the books, and I'm like, I just saw that at Barnes and Noble like literally last week. I was so close to buying it, but I'm kind of like trying to chill out with buying so many books, but I was so close. And maybe now this is confirmation I should go buy it. But what sort of genres do you represent?
Yes, I focus on children's and young adult books. Personally, reading, I read everything under the sun, you know, even adult nonfiction. But in terms of my work, I feel really passionate about focusing on children's and young adult. And I do a lot of illustrated books, so a lot of graphic novels, picture books, but I love prose so much as well. So I love middle grade novels, I love young adult novels, and I think people typically know me for realistic fiction more than fantasy, but I do love working on fantasy and sci-fi and all sorts of genres. So I think when it comes to children's books and young adult, I really love everything from commercial fiction to literary fiction and every genre you could possibly imagine. I think for me, what I love, it comes down to the craft and the storytelling and just encountering a voice that I've never encountered before is what gets me really excited about it.
Yeah, it kind of answers our next question, which was what makes something stand, because I can only imagine how much comes across. I don't know how you all deal with the level of, can you share some numbers? Like how many queries would you get in like a month or a year, or is it just so variable?
It is very variable. And it's hard to quantify. I don't do a great job at tracking the exact number, but to give a ballpark estimate, you know, I try to stay very on top of queries. I respond to queries and try to clear out that query inbox every single workday. But, you know, if I respond to all of my queries on Friday and then, you know, I'm out of my email inbox for the weekend, by Monday, I may have 50 to 100 queries waiting for me again. So it is a lot, and it grows whenever you become an agent. The moment you become an agent, you are just inundated with just thousands of queries because you're getting all of the books that, you know, from the writers who have been trying for years and they've queried every agent imaginable, and now there's a new agent, so that's the perfect opportunity for them. So you're getting a lot, and a lot of it is not good. And then, you know, for the next couple of years as an agent, you're really struggling to get submissions. You don't get quite as many queries because you don't really have a proven track record. And then once you do have a proven track record and you have a ton of books out there and people are discovering those books and then seeing your name in the acknowledgements, that's when you start to get flooded with queries again. Although this time around, the queries are such higher quality than when you first started as an agent. So it is a lot to keep up with, but it is very exciting to log into the query inbox and to think about, you know, if you're going to fall in love with something and be excited about it. And in terms of what stands out to me, I would say that when I'm reading queries, because there are so many of them, I'm really skimming them to get a sense for what the general concept is. I don't think there is any agent in the business that has the time to read query letters word for word. So I'm skimming to get a sense of what the premise is. And I think that the way that I feel and the way that many editors in publishing feel is that, we're lifelong readers and we've been reading books for, decades and decades. And so it feels like we're seeing a lot of the same stuff over and over again. And so when I have a query that, is explaining the book's premise, and I feel like I've never encountered that book before, that is what gets me really excited and makes me want to request to read it. So I think when I'm reviewing queries, I'm focused on concept and finding something unique that I've never seen before. And then after I have requested to read the manuscript, when I'm reading submissions, it's a lot more difficult to stay on top of full manuscripts than it is staying on top of queries. But when I'm reading submissions, I think the focus goes from, I'm no longer so focused on the concept. And when I'm reviewing manuscripts, that's when my focus becomes on the writer's craft and the storytelling. So I fall in love with the manuscript when I feel like the author told this story in just such an artistically excellent way that I'm blown away. And when their writing is so good that just as a reader, I would be going to Barnes and Noble every day they have a new book coming out and so excited to buy it. That's the lens through which I try to approach reviewing submissions.
I love that. Yeah. What does it take to get an offer from you? What is like the thought process that goes on for you?
I like to say that I approach being a literary agent as a reader first and foremost, and just as a total book lover, because I think that when I'm approaching it that way, I think that's when my instincts are best. And so it really takes, when I'm reading manuscripts, it's very much the same process as when I'm reading for pleasure. I just want to fall in love with this book. In the same way that as a reader, I just want something that totally takes me away and transports me, and makes me feel in love with the world. That's what I'm looking for in pleasure reading. So that's also what I'm looking for reviewing submissions. So I want to really fall in love with the craft, and I want to feel like I can be helpful to this writer. So I want to have a sense for what their career goals are and how they see their career unfolding, so that I can have a sense for if I'm the right agent for them. And when I'm reading a novel, it really does come down to the craft. But before I make an offer of representation, I will, do a Google search on the author to get a sense for their personality, and how that comes across through their social media platforms.
I love that. I've actually always been really curious about that. And I think it's from the agents we've interviewed so far, it does seem to vary what social media means to them. So, it's kind of side question. You do look up your clients in advance, see their platform. Does it mean anything to you social media wise, like followers or that kind of thing?
Yes, it's such an interesting question because social media does matter. And then on another level, I feel like it doesn't. I really do not have social media. And I am horrified by the things that I see on social media. And I think that there are many people who are narcissists. And so perhaps it works against an author, if I get the feeling that I don't like their personality, then I'm on the fence, then I may not offer representation to that person. But I don't think, if I love a book, an author's social media presence will not, inform my decision on whether or not I want to work on it. And I have clients that are terrific at social media and they love it and they're very successful at it. And then I have clients who, cannot write a tweet about their book to save their life. And they really do not like to be on social media at all. And those authors' books sell just as well and are just as successful. So, social media really does not sell books. I would say the exception is TikTok. TikTok is selling books in a huge way and creating these huge blockbuster successes. But I think it's not a requirement to be successful as a writer to have social media.
Yeah, no, I love that. Twitter does terrify me. I live on Instagram, but I've been recently getting into TikTok, which is so fun, and following like book talkers and seeing these books blow up. But kind of the trend I've been noticing is that it's a certain kind of book by a certain kind of author, if you know what I'm saying. And so I'm hoping, like, the main like book talkers I follow are people of color or people in the LGBTQ community, just because those are the books I'm like hoping just get boosted a little bit more. So it's something I just keep hoping to see, and hopefully it's gonna turn a little bit and give us a little more diversity in the book talk world. But yeah, I definitely, like, when I see some books, they blow up on there. And some of them are even like self-published indie author books, and you'll see them in Barnes and Noble because they just explode. So sometimes the power of social media is it's just this beast in itself, and it's pretty wild to see.
Yeah, I knew I need to make a TikTok. I just need to dump my Instagram reels on there. But I think some of what I've been noticing lately is it's not even necessarily like post by post. It can actually get accounts that I follow that are just like marketing their book based. I actually tune out pretty quick. But for me, like, the power of social media has been like this, like meeting people, finding out about pitch wars, networking in. And I think you can kind of like gauge a person often from how they post, if not what they post. It's very, I agree. I liked hearing that you can like, it kind of can sway your decision when you kind of look them up and see what they're like. Because yeah, I'm very much like that with following people. I'm just like, oh, maybe not. But so is there something that you wish writers knew before kind of querying agents or like signing with agents? Is there just like some of these burning questions that you're just like, why does every writer not know this?
I don't think so. And I think that is, I think that's a very good thing. I think that there's so much information out there for writers as they embark on this journey of wanting to get their work traditionally published. And I think that for writers to be in community with one another can be problematic. I think it can be toxic, and it can create a culture where authors are comparing themselves to one another in a way that's not fair and not healthy. But I think that on the flip side, writers being in community with one another can be an amazing thing. And they can help one another and share experiences. And so when I have offered representation to a writer and we're having that conversation, I find that writers are asking all the right questions and are very knowledgeable and have done their homework. So I can't think of anything that I would say in response to that question.
Yeah. Is there anything in a query or just a manuscript or anything that comes into your inbox that is almost like an automatic no or just pass right away?
No, I don't think so. What I would say is that one of my observations over the last few years has been that I feel like I see writers writing and submitting their work, and their focus is way too much on getting published. And I feel like writers, their North Star has become, I want to put this book out to be published. And that's not the way they did it in the last century, right? I think that those books that are classics, that we love, those writers, their North Star was writing the book of their heart, and in a way that just they wanted to write that book to the furthest extent of their craft and their ability, right? So they were very focused on making that book as amazing as they could. And I wish that I saw more writers taking their time with their manuscripts. And even if it takes 3 years to write that book, if you make it as amazing as you can, I think that will come across in the read. And so agents will fall in love with it. Publishers will fall in love with it. If it's such an amazing book, that's what will propel it onto the bestseller list and make it win awards and get, the Netflix movie adaptation. I see so many writers with those goals, and I feel like writers forget that in this publishing industry, there's so much that is outside of our control, but the one thing that is in a writer's control is their craft. And so I think that if writers were more dedicated to their craft and developing their craft was their North Star, then I think some of their goals would be a lot more attainable.
I love everything you just said. Like, seriously, that is, this podcast episode needs to be everywhere. I'm going to boost this on extra because it's so true. And like, actually coming back to what you said before about like writing communities can be quite toxic, or they can be the opposite, quite like everything. And having experienced both, it's so true. And the people I have now in my writing group, they have those pure guiding star motives. It's just the fire in their soul to do this thing. And it's so vastly different from the ones who are like, it's passion versus desperate. And it might look like the same thing to some people, but it feels so different when you interact with them, because the passion is like fire and you all uplift each other and you all cheer for each other at the top of your lungs. And the desperate is kind of like nitpicky, like, oh, you got this, I didn't get this. Oh, how does this happen? It's so different. And I think so important to talk about, because when you get into the former group that's more negative, you need to get out. You need to get out and find like the passionate people. So yes, I'm just living for everything you're saying right now.
Yeah, I felt like I was at church for a second. I was just like, thank you, please.
Right.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I received it. I took it in.
Yeah. And, I feel like I learned that lesson myself. I think everyone working in this industry, whether you're a publishing professional or you're a writer, you need to know what the reason why you do this work and why you want to be here. And when I was a couple of years ago in my career, when I was first starting to sell books very consistently, I got very caught up in wanting to sell a book and wanting to sell it at auction, just because that felt very exciting and it felt very cool and fancy. And that was when I had social media. And so I was excited to brag about those things on social media. And when I got caught up in that, I found that I was really struggling to actually sustain myself and find success and feel motivated. And I really hit a dry spell where I wasn't selling that many books. And I think I had a reckoning with myself. And I really realized, I'm not in this industry. I'm not in this job to sell books, to feel fancy or to have things that I can brag about. I'm really selling the books that would have changed my life as a kid and as a teenager. So my number one mission in this career is to work on books that make kids and teenagers live as their most authentic selves and love their most authentic selves. And I think the perfect example of that for me, the very first picture book that I ever worked on is called Prince and Knight. written by Daniel Hack and illustrated by Stevie Lewis. And it is a picture book about a prince and a knight that fall in love. And that book has been published for a few years now, and it has been incredibly successful. People just love that book. And every time someone tells me about that book, they say, I cannot imagine what my reaction would have been if I was a kid and saw this book in my classroom or at the store. And that's how I feel about it. If 5-year-old Brent had seen that book, it just would have meant the absolute world to me. And so I always try to remember that. And I always try to remind myself, that is what is most important in this business. And that, I think, is what positions me for the most success, and my clients for the most success as well.
Wow. Honestly, I was getting teary-eyed again. So thank you. Just thank you for being who you are, and, representing these authors and having the right heart in this industry. And it's showing, in bringing books like that really do change a young reader's life. And so just thank you. I honestly,
yeah,
it's beautiful.
And I think that self-awareness and that self-growth, that is everything, because like you said, we all come from, we weren't necessarily, most of us, brought up in that kind of world with those kinds of things. And it is like having that open heart and sharing those stories. It's just so beautiful to hear. So thank you. I also welled up. You're really getting us today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing some emotions back to my cold heart. What has been the hardest part about being an agent? I guess you kind of touched on it a little bit.
Yeah. There are a couple of things that are really hard. Even if I absolutely love a manuscript, that is not a guarantee that it's going to be published, because, countless times I fall in love with a novel and I submit it to publishers, and we just can't find a publisher that's willing to take a chance on it. Or we do find an editor that loves it as much as we do, but that editor can't convince the acquisitions board at the publishing house, to approve an offer for the book. So that is very disappointing when there's a book that you absolutely love and you just can't sell it. And then another very difficult thing is when you have a book that you love and you do sell it, and then it's published and it's a failure and it doesn't sell many copies at all. And it's really upsetting, just from the perspective of loving something and feeling that there's absolutely an audience out there for it. And then, you realize that for various reasons, that book didn't reach that audience. And then that becomes very difficult for the author to continue to publish books traditionally if they have a poor sales track. So those are probably the most disappointing things about this job.
Yeah. So I'd like to ask, like, with all these clients, and like, it seems like such a heavy schedule to balance, how do you manage or prevent burnout?
Yes. I think I prevent burnout by, just sticking to a normal work schedule. So I don't work beyond 9 to 5. And that has been very helpful to me. Earlier in my career, I felt like a workhorse, and I would work on weekends and at midnight, and it just wasn't sustainable. So for me, even though this is working in the publishing industry, it's a job that's very easy to do outside of normal hours, but I just try to strictly maintain those normal hours, and that helps me with burnout.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's something that we always kind of have heard from other agents, that they take work home, right? And so even when you are relaxing at night, you've got the show on, but you're still constantly reading through manuscripts or queries. And so I think there is something really very nice and refreshing to hear. It's like, no, at 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
done. Because your mental health and, you know, just having a life outside of publishing is just so important. And I think we forget that, you know, agents need time away from things sometimes.
Yeah. We're all humans, not machines. And I think it's like society would love us to forget that and just operate nonstop. But no, there has to be breaks. So I feel like you very much answered kind of the advice to authors before querying, like about polishing the work. So are you open to queries at the moment? And if so, what are you looking for right now?
Yes, I have been open to queries my entire 8 years in publishing. I am terrified of closing to queries and then, you know, this magnificent, you know, novel that is perfect for me, you know, that author not sending that book to me just because I was closed to queries. So I think that I will remain open to queries always. And right now, I am looking for everything. I think that I'm getting a ton of picture book submissions, and it is very rare for me to sign on a picture book author with just one manuscript. I think that my picture book clients tend to also be novelists. So I think I'm more looking for novels, middle grade novels and young adult as well. And I'm getting a lot of realistic middle grade fiction submitted to me. I think because I represent so much of it. But I would love to see more commercial YA in my inbox. So my colleague Laura Crockett, she represents Chloe Gong, who has published These Violent Delights and Our Violent Ends. And my other colleagues, they represent terrific young adult. And I'm a little sad to be losing out on some of it because I think people think of me more as a middle grade guy. So I'm just reminding people that I love YA and I want to keep working on YA.
Please, everybody, send him your YA because, yeah, you've got some heavy hitters over at your agency when it comes to young adult novels. There's some amazing books that your agency represents. So everybody, yes, send those YA.
Indeed. I'm so proud of our list. And we're very unique as an agency because we work so closely with one another and we're all such close colleagues and friends. And, you know, we're all constantly calling each other for advice. And we just have an incredible list, you know, from children's books all the way up to adult fiction. So I'm very proud of it.
You really do. Yeah, all of you guys. I see that our time is dwindling down. I don't know how. Where can our readers find you? I know you're not really on social media, so what is the best place for them to find you?
They can find me on the agency's website, www.triadaus.com. And they can also find me on my personal website, which is btaylorbooks.com.
Perfect. Yeah, because on that website, you guys are going to see all of the amazing books he represents. I mean, just it's an elite list. I was so impressed. I was like, I wanted this book. I read this book. So
it's been such an honor to have you on today. And seriously, I always say this, but I seriously don't know where the time went. I was quite shocked to look over there. And yeah, just any parting words for our listeners, aspiring writers out in the trenches?
Parting words, I would just say to be optimistic and to be passionate, and you know, that when you're working on your book, in order to crack open readers' hearts, you really have to crack open your own as well as you're writing it, and you know, to embrace that and to allow yourself to do that.
I'm gonna just end the episode there because nothing can top the fire you just said.
So that was amazing.
Brought it.
Well, thank you all so much. It was so fun to spend time with you all today.
It was our pleasure, honestly. Thank you.
Yes, and I will be getting busy editing this episode ASAP because our listeners.
Well, they are readers because they are passionate book lovers, right?
Exactly.
So thank you, Brent. It was really wonderful chatting, and yeah, take care and enjoy the night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.